Good morning and welcome to the Premier Football Podcast. A lively weekend of football. Spurs go back top with a dull 0-0 draw with Chelsea. Liverpool slip to first place with a poor result away to Brighton. Arsenal lose again. City back to winning ways. We've got plenty to discuss this weekend, and I'm joined as always by my good mate Joe Doherty. Joe, how are you this morning?
The less said about my mood last night and this morning, the better, Rafe. It's amazing how, I actually sometimes love Monday mornings, but the last few weeks, Arsenal have been kicking off at either 4:30 or 7:15 on a Sunday. And obviously results and performances have been subpar, to say the least. And it just sets the tone for the whole of the week, I'd say. Like, it's amazing how a bad result for your football team can put you in a shitty mood. I should be used to it by now, but I'm not. It still gets me every time.
Okay, well, I guess you've just hijacked the running order of the show. We'll start with Arsenal. Obviously, you mentioned that they seem to be starting your week off on the wrong foot. Is that a byproduct of playing in the Europa League on the Thursday, that they always get stuck with one of the later shifts on the weekend?
Yes, but I mean, yeah, it is. I suppose Leicester aren't playing until tonight, right?
Yeah.
And Spurs played yesterday in the earlier late kickoff, in the 4:30 kickoff.
I'm very interested in kickoff times this weekend.
Yeah, we are. I mean, yes, but you have to be able to deal with this, and there's nothing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not complaining about that, having to play on a Sunday night. The only reason I'm complaining is that it puts me in a shitty mood for Monday morning when I like to be in a good mood on Sunday night, relax, go to bed at a reasonable hour and wake up fresh. And Arsenal just makes me depressed. I overthink things and overanalyze things. But I mean, it's nothing new. You said this earlier when we were planning the show for today, that I was saying we need to start with Arsenal, and you were against it because we talked about it all last week, and we probably did. But I mean, I think from my point of view, maybe if I could add something new that we didn't talk about last week to freshen this conversation.
Please, Joe, that'd be great.
Is that I think that this has been a long time coming, and that the problems are much, much deeper than just Mikel Arteta and his tactics. If we look at this objectively, we've had Arsene Wenger fail to get a tune out of a significant number of these players. Unai Emery start reasonably well and then fall off a cliff, and his last 6 to 8 months as manager were absolutely shocking. Freddie Ljungberg came as interim. Usually, I mean, you saw this with Duncan Ferguson at Everton. He came in and he did extremely well. Often you get a bounce from an interim manager. Ljungberg did not do that. I think he won once in 4 or 5 games. Then Arsenal appoint Arteta, and he immediately makes them look more organised. But now it's worse than it ever was under Wenger and Emery. So you have 4 managers here, although Ljungberg, of course, was just interim, who are failing to get the best out of players who, I mean, it's not a great squad, and we can talk about that a little bit. I think it lacks a lot of experience. There's a gap between having very experienced players like Aubameyang and Lacazette and, people in their 30s, Özil as well, even though he's not involved, and then having these youngsters from the academy who are 2021, and you don't really have that middle age, early to mid 20s, like Liverpool's squad is made up almost entirely of those players, and playing in their peak. So it's just been 4 managers failing to get something out of players who are not. I mean, they're not awful. I think you look at Southampton, you look at West Ham, you look at, I don't know, Brighton, Crystal Palace, who are playing better than Arsenal at the moment. It's really, really bad.
There are lots of players in that Arsenal team that I would describe as awful, that aren't good enough. It's interesting that you talk about the ages of the players, and I've actually heard recently a term to describe that. It's called the talent donut.
What does that mean? There's a hole in the middle?
Exactly, yeah. You've got the top and the bottom in terms of the young players and the old experience, but you've not got that core of players playing in their prime.
Absolutely. I mean, Arteta has to take some of the blame for this, because he has fought tooth and nail to get something out, to bring Willian in and get something out of him. He was the one who gave Aubameyang a new contract, even though I think everyone would have done that, and there would have been hell to pay if he didn't stay. But I mean, it's what I'm trying to say is he's bet his job on these older players. Because if they're not doing it and leading by example every single week, the young players are not. They're okay, but they're nothing incredibly special. I think Saka's pretty decent, but the rest of them, Nketiah, Reece Nelson, Ainsley Maitland-Niles.
How important would a player like Aaron Ramsey be at Arsenal right now?
Huge. I mean, this is huge. He should be Arsenal captain right now. I mean, this is the thing. As well as this, Arsenal have kept on letting players of the quality of Aaron Ramsey run down their contracts and leave for little to no money for years. And to be fair to Arteta, that's not his fault. That was the previous manager, the previous CEO. But we can't put everything on them.
What needs to happen?
It's not too long ago that everyone was talking about Arteta being one of the brightest managers in the Premier League. After the FA Cup win, after the Community Shield win, you said Arsenal were a great team when Arsenal beat Liverpool in the Community Shield in the first podcast of the season.
I said the sky was the limit for Arsenal this year.
You said Arsenal could win the league. I remember.
Yeah. I said they were defending really, really well. If they could continue to keep clean sheets through the year, I backed Aubameyang to score a few goals. But what we've seen this year, like I sent you a message maybe an hour through the game yesterday and asked you, what does Dani Ceballos do? You know, there are so many of these Arsenal players that I look at them and I just think, what do they contribute to the team? Like what it's not even what can he do, but what's his role in that team? Because I don't even think that he seems to understand what he's meant to be doing.
No, definitely not. And I think that he's being asked to play in many different roles throughout his time at Arsenal. First and foremost, I don't think that he's a fantastic player, and he's definitely not what, you know, he's not a Santi Cazorla, which I think a lot of people would have liked him to be. The thing is, him and Xhaka worked reasonably well at the back end of last season. They formed some sort of a partnership, but this season it's not working. And like he doesn't defend particularly well. He doesn't dictate the tempo of our game at all. He is not a playmaker, and he doesn't contribute goals and assists. So he's really lost there, and it's very, very, very concerning that Arsenal can't string 3 or 4 passes together. There's no constant in our style of play anymore. That for me is the most concerning thing.
I've had a look back at the team from last night, and I honestly didn't realize that Joe Willock was playing. I was trying to work out if they were playing with 2 or 3 in midfield. I was thinking, what the hell? I didn't realize that he was playing. I didn't watch the entire game. Now I probably watched about 40 minutes. From halftime towards near the end, but I didn't see him at all.
Neither did I. The fact that he's playing is ahead of. I think the Mesut
Ozil.
Yeah. I have to say, Ozil is not the player he once was. Is he better than Joe Willock? Of course he is. It's outrageous to suggest that.
How old is Ozil now?
31.
Joe, you think about the likes of
32. Sorry, 32.
Think about he was never a quick player. He never relied on his speed or his talent. You think about the likes of Andres Pirlo that were doing it until they were about 36 just because they knew how to caress a football. You know, you look at some great midfielders, the Barcelona midfielders, Xavi and Iniesta, guys like that. I'm telling you now that Ozil can still go to a top level club and have 2 or 3 years left if he's put in the right system and has the right accommodations made from him, because he is that good. I was looking at some of his stats the other day. He got 81 assists in 3 seasons for Real Madrid under Jose Mourinho. He is world class, and managers are failing to get the best out of him.
Yeah, they are. I mean, I don't think he's been terrible for Arsenal. I think since Arsene Wenger left, and he had that father figure who really sought to build a team around him and to cater to his strengths. His levels have dipped because the other 2 managers are much more organized. But then again, it's strange because Jose Mourinho is an ultra organized manager, isn't he? Yeah. In the same way that Unai Emery and Mikel Arteta are. He has to have his players all contributing something in terms of their work off the ball. So it's. I don't know, man. I think it's another thing. Just sorry, footballing reasons aside, Özil is an outrageously popular member of the dressing room as well. He's very, very well liked. So to have him You can look at Arsenal's form while Ozil was being left out, but he was still a member of the official squad. And then when that decision was made to omit him entirely, and there's a clear departure in level of performance and commitment from the players there.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. And look, in reference to that game, Arsenal aren't the first team to go down at home to Wolves. You know, Wolves aren't a bad Premier League side. They've switched to a back four over the last couple of games, and they've had some joy up front. They've been scoring more goals than before. That was part of the criticism that was leveled at them, was that they weren't scoring as many goals as they should have. The change in formation seems to have unlocked a bit more attacking impetus up top. And even though they lost Raul Jimenez, they still put two past Arsenal. I feel like we expected a lot from Wolves after they came up and that they broke into the European places in their first season. Last year was their second season. It was an adjustment period. That there was no second season syndrome. They didn't look like going down or anything. But where is that club going now?
Well, they let two of their key players go over the summer in Doherty and Jota.
Well, they brought in Semedo to replace Doherty.
They did, who looks very good. And you have to say that Podence and Neto look extremely good as well. So it's clear that they, the Jota situation, they were offered a good amount of money for him. Maybe they'll at the end of the season, the way Jota started for Liverpool, they'll think they should have asked for 50 million plus. But he was relatively inexperienced.
He had fallen out of form there last year as well, and sorry, he'd found himself on the bench at the end of the season.
A little, yeah, and he obviously wanted to go, so they got a good offer for a player that wanted to go, and they took it. But they don't miss him. It's strange. Like Wolves were 13th or 14th, I think. If they'd lost yesterday, Arsenal would have been the team in the top 7, and Wolves would have been in 14th or 15th in 14th place. But Wolves put in a great performance, and they obviously lost Jimenez to a terrible concussion. The sounds of the clash of heads when him and David Luiz met in the penalty area was awful, and obviously we hope that Jimenez makes a speedy recovery. But they played so well even without Raul Jimenez, and he has been their focal point. Pretty much all of their attacking play is built around him and his ability to link up with their attacking midfielders. And so to put in that level of performance without him, it shows that they have much more to their game than we previously thought. And those attacking players, in particular Neto and Podence, are really, really talented, and the future looks extremely good for Wolves. I'm quite sure that it's going to be another top 7. I'd be very surprised if they finished below 8th, and that'd be decreasing on their previous 2 years. They've obviously finished 7th twice in a row, but the competition keeps on getting better. Wolves finishing 8th is still pretty good, but obviously they'll be looking to get into the top 6 and then the top 4 as well. That would be the ambitions of the owners and the manager, I'm sure.
Yeah, I certainly agree with you there as well. It's interesting that you mentioned the fine margins between being 14th and being 7th. Now, obviously, we're only 9 or 10 games into the season, and things do change. But it's funny how carried away supporters of certain clubs are getting early on in the season. We saw Spurs and Chelsea meet yesterday. Obviously, Spurs went back top of the table with a draw on goal difference, and Chelsea remained just a point off the lead. Last week, we were talking about Liverpool being runaway leaders because they won a comfortable game, and now they've gone and they've drawn with Brighton, and all of a sudden, the year that everybody wanted is back on, this 2020 mad scramble with 5 or 6 teams competing at the top, and it's just really interesting how quickly things can change. How long do we need to give it, do you think, before we can start looking at the teams up the top and calling them title contenders? Because if Aston Villa win their 2 games in hand, they're top of the Premier League outright.
Yeah, this is really silly. I'd hark back to the 2 seasons, 2013-14, 2014-15. 2013-14? No, sorry, it was... weren't Arsenal top of the Premier League for longer than anyone else in 2013-14? And then Liverpool went on a mad run, and Liverpool were... Like, Arsenal led until January, January, something like that. Then Liverpool took over. Everyone thought Liverpool was going to win.
We had a
And
bet
then
that year.
Liverpool imploded.
I told you at the start of November that Arsenal would make a balls of it and Liverpool would catch them and overtake them.
We were in UCD in
Yeah.
university during our finals, and we were in the library having a coffee or something like that. And Arsenal were top in late November, early December.
They had a few points as well.
Yeah, like by 6 points or something like that. And we made a bet. I don't know how much. And then even in January, Arsenal were still top of the table. Arsenal led the table for five months or something like that. Then Liverpool, that SAS partnership just clicked into gear.
Arsenal had their New Year blues, and
Arsenal had their New Year blues as was customary under Arsene Wenger, and then Liverpool led the way. But then obviously that game against Chelsea happened, and
then Crystal Palace after that.
Palace. Yeah, and then City under Pellegrini, they were the ones who were able to just be consistent enough throughout to nip in when it mattered most.
Do you know that game against Crystal Palace is known as Christian Bull in some circles?
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, look, Spurs are top of the league. It was a resilient defensive performance from Jose Mourinho, epitomised by the substitution, bringing on Ben Davis with 4 minutes to go. He had no intention of ever going to win that game. He knows that a point in the bridge is a good result. We've seen him do it down the years, go to Old Trafford, go to Highbury, the Emirates, Anfield, wherever it is, and just shut up shop. And we saw it again yesterday. Is there any credit needed for Frank Lampard for keeping a dangerous Spurs quiet as well? Or should they have been the ones expected to go on and look for goals and get them? Because they did almost have a goal in Werner.
Yeah, they had one ruled out for offside. It was a very well taken finish by Werner, but he was a yard offside. They'll be disappointed that they didn't win that game. Olivier Giroud had I would say more than a half chance at the end, where he had an opportunity to just put the ball over Hugo Lloris. Lloris was way off his line, and he wasn't that close to Giroud. And I think that top strikers put that away.
Would that have been the best goal he ever scored for Arsenal?
Oh, Christ. Absolutely not. No. Lampard will be disappointed, but at the same time, when Jose Mourinho sets up to take a point, it's very hard to get 3 points against him when he's in that mood, because it's well documented. He's proven so many times that he loves nothing more than going away to another big club and spoiling the party. That he loves that. That's one of his favorite things.
What would you say if I told you that Spurs were going to win the league? They're real, genuine contenders, man. They're top now. This is the year for Spurs. There are a lot of people out there talking like that already. Liverpool aren't at it this year. City are going to have their blips. Chelsea don't have it in them. It's Jose Mourinho. This is the year, because this is what I'm hearing.
What evidence have Spurs shown ever that this is going to be their year? How many times have Spurs been in a similar situation under Pochettino, and then it all crashes and burns? I look at that squad, and outside of the likes of Kane and Son, there's absolutely not. Maybe Lloris, because he is an extremely good keeper, but there's absolutely. Bale doesn't seem to be involved. He's like fourth choice winger. So
it's all about Mourinho, though. This is the thing. He's the new factor. He's not Pochettino. He's got the experience. He wins trophies, Joe.
He wins trophies. He last won the Premier League in 2014-15, and that was a very good. That was a very good achievement with his Chelsea team, and they obviously went and won the league under Conte not too longer after. But I'm a bit lost for words there.
Yeah, I'm only putting you on the spot, mate. I don't see them going the distance, but look, this is Tottenham Hotspur. At the end of the day, they could be 7, 8, 9, 10 points clear with 6 or 7 games left to go. And if there are fans allowed in that stadium, you talked about the 13-14 season, and that's what did Liverpool in, to be honest, was this circus, this carnival that became associated with match day. The fans were going out at 7, 8 a.m. for like a 3 o'clock kickoff, lining the streets, drinking all day, letting off fireworks, singing through the entire, and it was incredible to see. But they were singing about, being champions and this is our year, and that pressure seeps into the dressing room. And this is a Spurs team that have never won anything. No one in that, Gareth Bale is the only one that's won trophies in that team.
Yeah, Lloris has obviously won the World Cup, and Sissoko. Well, I completely get your point, but obviously, like you said, the media will be saying that Mourinho's the one who's been there and done it. But
you mentioned Harry Kane and Son. Harry Kane hasn't been fully fit for a season since Leicester won the Premier League. Since Spurs blew it that year, he's not been fully fit for an entire season. In this shortened season, where they're expected to play a heap of games with shorter recovery time, they don't have a genuine replacement for him. I know that Vinicius is playing in the Europa League games, but once they get through their League Cup quarterfinal, suddenly they've got a Manchester team in the semi-final of that. He has to play that game. If they get through, he plays the final of that. The FA Cup draw is today. If they get a tough draw in that, is Jose going to give up the FA Cup? If they draw Man City or something like that in the first round?
No chance.
He'll play any big games he has to in that cup. Once they get to the Europa League quarterfinal, he's going to need to start playing games there as well. And there's just no way he stays fit for the whole season. And there's no way that they win games in his absence.
Yeah, I completely agree. He's absolutely key to how they play when they're playing well, because of I mean, even before he developed this new style of dropping deeper and linking up with Son in the way that he's done this season. The
only thing that I've heard...
Aside from that, man, there are two better teams than them.
At least,
yeah. There are two better teams than them, at least. The City results, it was poor for City, but do you think that could kind of be a catalyst for them? That they lose to Spurs again? It's the third time that they've lost to Spurs in the last two seasons.
Jose and Pep have this thing that goes back. Like, Pep won't be thinking about that anymore. He's lost to Mourinho enough times. City have lost enough games. They're not like Liverpool over the last couple of years, where a loss is incredibly rare for them. Liverpool tend to draw a lot of games. City win or lose. They show up or they don't show up. When they're at it, they're at it. When they're not at it, they're not at it. That they won't be sitting there crying, thinking, "Oh, we got done by Spurs." They went out and won 5-0 at the weekend, man. They're not thinking about that anymore. They're professionals in that dressing room. Pep's won trophies as well. I know I tipped City to fall out of the top four this year, but that's just because of the increased standard across the board. I don't by any means think that they're rubbish or they've gone off the boil. No, I definitely wouldn't be writing them off. The last thing I wanted to say on Spurs, was that the style of play that they use might be favourable to them. I've heard this thrown around as well, that because Liverpool and City and the likes play a more high energy style in this season, where there are more games coming thick and fast, maybe a more kind of abrasive style might suit them a little bit more, because they'll have a fewer miles in the legs.
Maybe, but I think that they have a weaker squad than City and Liverpool, so they're not going to rotate as much. But as well as that, I wanted to ask you this actually. Do you think the players will get fed up with this style of play?
Not if they're winning.
That's probably the key point, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that's on Mourinho to make sure that they do keep winning. I think that this December period that we're coming into is, I mean, this is the period that is going to show us what the table is actually going to look like. We have a vague idea now. I mean, I don't think Spurs are going to be finishing 8th or 9th like we predicted before I don't think ball was kicked. They're going to be in and around it for a good bit of time. But this, how teams navigate December and how teams come out after Boxing Day, we're going to have a much better idea of what the final table is going to look like.
Yeah, and look, we talk about the shortened season and the games coming thick and fast. My team, Liverpool, the manager Jurgen Klopp had a fair bit to say about that over the last week or so, and this has been bubbling over for a while now. Since they beat Leicester 3-0, his post-match press conference was dominated with fixture pile up and congestion and recovery time, and then after the loss to Atlanta, he was talking about it again, and then obviously after the draw at the weekend, he was talking about it again, and he went on an 8-minute rant or debate with an interviewer, almost blaming the fixture pile up on the reporter, which is an interesting thing to do, and it does seem as though that there is pressure certainly building on the manager, as you might imagine, with whatever it is, 13 or 14 first team players out. We've seen managers and heard managers over the years talking about this, Joe, and it's very easy to write them off when they're not the manager of your team. Like, for example, I saw the fixtures for Christmas this year, and I saw that City were playing twice in 3 days again, and straight away I thought, yes, that's brilliant. You know, they're going to struggle there because they've got games close together. And it is a disadvantage, you know, when Pepson said it over the years and Jose said it over the years. I've always thought, look, you know, you're those are first world problems. Those are top of the league problems. You know, if you're up there, you have to deal with it. But when you do see the number of soft tissue injuries that are happening this year in the Premier League, is it different this year, or is it something that he's just got to get on with?
No, it's different this year, but certainly for the teams competing in Europe, it's the same for everyone. Everyone has been asked to play to start the season after 4 to 6 weeks holidays max.
Yeah.
And then everyone's asked to deal with playing Premier League, Europa League, or Champions League, and then throw in the cup competitions as well. And everyone is being asked to play 4 games inside of a week in December. Everyone knew this when Project Restart was launched, when the decision was made. I mean, the other option was to cancel the season then, like they did in France. Would that have been better?
Were Liverpool giving up their first Premier League trophy in 30 years? I don't think
would
so.
he have minded? That's the other option for him. Like, what do you think he would prefer? Obviously to finish last season and then deal with this season as it comes. I mean, I feel for the players, because I think that the lead-in time was really subpar, and they're being asked to do too much, and the factor in the Euros next summer, and it's just and the World Cup the summer after that, and it's just absolutely mad. But this is the reality.
His gripe in particular was that, now obviously with the free to air games this year, or whatever they're being called, the previous Saturday 3 p.m. kickoffs are now obviously being staggered through the day so that we can sit there and watch football all through the day. And it's brilliant. It's fantastic for the fans. It's pure class, you know, rather than having your one early kickoff, your 6 3 p.m.s or whatever, you can watch football all weekend. But the broadcasters have a say in which particular team plays at which time on the Saturday. So obviously Liverpool were in to play Wednesday, Saturday, and they were grumpy that their game was moved forwards from 3 p.m. to the 12:30, while Man City got to keep their afternoon slot because they're playing at different times of the day and they have shorter recovery. I mean, is he splitting hairs there really over a 12:30 start or a 3 o'clock start?
Yes, like you said, City. First of all, there is a big difference between a 12:30 start and a 3:30 start. I think everyone who's read about football and the preparation that goes into it the night before and on game day knows that those 3 or 4 hours does make a difference.
Like, let's have a look at the Saturday games. So Brighton, Liverpool was early, then City and Burnley. City obviously played midweek, and then Everton, Leeds, and Sheffield United versus West Brom. Could Everton, Leeds, or Sheffield United, West Brom not have been moved forwards? Is that not something
Certainly. Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. So, without a shadow of a doubt, both of those games. And I mean, you could have had City and Liverpool as the 2 late kickoffs.
And that would make sense. And I think this is the kind of thing that, you know, in the season that's in it, I think Klopp obviously felt upset coming out of whatever Premier League meeting they had about substitutions as well. He went off on a rant about Chris Wilder looking after his own interests, and he feels like across the board, you know, they're not getting any help from anybody. Can I just say something?
Go for it. When managers start down this path of blaming everyone else but themselves, and I mean there are external issues, and Klopp does have a certain amount of a right to complain about this, but first and foremost, he needs to be focusing on his team and getting the most out of the players that are available. Because when managers start down this path, we've seen it with Wenger, we've seen it with Mourinho, it often doesn't go well. So his job is to retain the Premier League title first and foremost. The other competitions are kind of secondary this season. Like that has to be the focus. So the more time he spends preparing the squad that he does have available for match days, and the less energy he wastes harassing BT Sports reporters, I think that it'll do him the world of good. He doesn't need that. He does not need he doesn't need that.
And I've got 2 things to say about that. Now, I've started reading the At the End of the Storm Athletic book that written by James Pearce and others. And I sent you a shot of one of the pages. And at the start of last season, they had tight games they went from Istanbul from the European Super Cup to playing Southampton within 3 days or something away. And he was raging at it apparently, but he didn't make the issue public because he didn't want to give the players an excuse for not getting the result in Southampton. Now, if he starts on this tangent after the win against Leicester, sure enough, they go on to lose at home to Atlanta. Atalanta, badly. Yeah, not they're not playing in Georgia.
No.
they lose at home to Atalanta, and then they go and they drop points in a bad performance away to Brighton, because he's been talking about this all week. It's dominated the headlines and he's given them an out. But the other thing that we've spoken about privately is the players that he's got in his squad. And you know that Oxlade-Chamberlain is going to be injured for 4 or 5 months of any given season. He's like Harry Kane in that way. He's going to get injured. Naby Keita, his injury record is absolutely shocking and appalling. You know he's going to be injured for large chunks of the season. Jordan Henderson can't stay fit for the entire season. He's going to have knocks and niggles. He's never had a bad one that's kept him out, but he's been injured every year for periods in time. Gomez gets injured every single season. Matip gets injured every single season. They sold Dejan Lovren and they didn't replace him over the summer. Now, I don't think they'd be better off having Lovren in the squad, but I think they've left themselves short going into this season in terms of players and squad depth.
I completely agree. And it's quite comparable. I mean, I'm not comparing Dejan Lovren to Vincent Kompany and what Lovren was for Liverpool compared to what Kompany was for City. But you can't go into a Premier League season, especially this season, which is so packed, so many games to play in such a short period of time, with 3 senior centre-backs, especially with an injury-prone one in Joel Matip. It's not on. And, he can say, yeah, Fabinho can play there, and they have a serious amount of senior centre midfielders. So it's not the end of the world to have to drop Fabinho in because there's so much cover in centre midfield. But like you said, once you're relying on people like Oxlade-Chamberlain and Naby Keita to stay fit for long periods, and that's not going to happen, then it just makes his decision to not sign a centre-back look even more laughable. And I don't think it'll affect Liverpool. I think they'll still win the league, but it's just it doesn't look great on Klopp's part, and it will be that he has to take that. He has to take the blame for that, in the same way that Pep has to take the blame for not replacing Kompany. You can't go into a full season with 3 senior centre backs.
Yeah, it's not like they didn't know that this season was going to be tough, that there was going to be a pile of fixtures. They don't have. I know they have Nico Williams in reserve at right back. He's not at the level required. He doesn't look good. They don't have a replacement for Trent. They went out and they got a left back. In fairness to Costas, he looks all right, but they don't have a backup for Trent. If you're looking at who's going to partner Van Dijk, Gomez and Matip are both injury prone, and it was highly likely that they were both going to be injured at the same time. Now it's turned out that it's Van Dijk that's actually got injured, which nobody obviously saw coming. And obviously they signed Thiago and he's been injured, and nobody saw that coming either. But you've got to expect the unexpected, and you've got to plan for the worst. And I don't think Liverpool have done that. And they need players like Alexander-Arnold and Thiago and Jordan Henderson and the guys that are on short-term injuries to get themselves fit as soon as possible. Because if they do start to drop points coming into this busy period, they're giving themselves a big task.
Yeah, they are. Liverpool need to come out of Christmas top by 3 or 4 points.
Yeah, because if they start giving other teams a sniff, then they're under pressure. Because what they were doing last year is they were winning games before they'd even played them.
Yeah, exactly.
If there's a sense of vulnerability about Liverpool this year, if someone's chasing them down, it's going to be a different story. Because they didn't have to show their nerve last year towards the end of the year. There was no run-in. They couldn't bottle it because everyone else was so far off the pace.
Liverpool had it done by Christmas, man. There was no 2 ways about it. They had it done by Christmas. I think the Spurs game is going to be huge. When is that? Is that in 2 weeks? 2 weeks or 3 weeks?
Spurs are playing Arsenal next week, and then obviously they've got that game against Liverpool in a couple of weeks as well. So there's so much football to come.
Yeah.
Look, we wanted to start with what we thought was the biggest headline of the weekend. We're now down to topic 3 or 4. Manchester United, Joe. winning 3-2. I think you said it was a throwback to the Alex Ferguson era, a late stoppage time winner from Edison Cavani, headed in from a Marcus Rashford free kick.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that's a great result. Let's not kid ourselves. That's a great result. United were actually a little bit unlucky to be 2-0 down at half time, in the sense that they had two relatively clear-cut opportunities. I think both of them fell to Bruno Fernandes. Well, the first was a shot from outside the box, but which the keeper turned away. But then Greenwood missed a 1-on-1, and the rebound fell to Fernandes, and he couldn't tuck it away.
Credit to Alex McCarthy though; he's a good goalkeeper.
He is. He's a very good goalkeeper. I can't remember I don't think he's in the England squad. He's probably unlucky to be missing out to the likes of Jordan Pickford, who actually had a good game against Leeds. But I mean, that was a great response in the second half, and Cavani completely changed the game. That's going to give Woodward and Solskjaer, whoever were the ones behind that transfer, some credit, because he's clearly got something to offer at this level, and he could be absolutely crucial for them. I can't think of a better reserve striker than him if he is going to be coming off the bench in the Premier League. There isn't one.
Diogo Jota?
He's starting games, man, and he plays on the wing.
Sadio Mane started on the bench last week. One of the Liverpool front three.
Yeah, but they're wingers. They're not strikers. I can't think of it. Well, they're forwards. I can't think of a reserve number 9 who's
Fair.
as good as Cavani and is going to be as impactful as Cavani is. Do you remember last year they had a Gallo to come off the bench?
Yeah, I mean, did Chelsea not have a decent number 9 in Tammy Abraham, or he started there as well? Isn't he?
They're not as good as Cavani. They're not as good
fair.
as Cavani. Cavani, he might still be world class. He was certainly world class for the entirety of his career at PSG and at Napoli. He's one of the best strikers of his generation.
I suppose I judge him more on the Napoli time. It's very difficult to tell how good a player is when they're playing in that PSG team in France, because obviously the standard isn't as high across the French league, and when you've got Neymar and Mbappe putting it on a plate for you, it can be difficult to obviously judge that quality. But he was fantastic at Napoli. He's been brilliant for Uruguay, and he does look like he's doing it for United. He looks like a genetic freak in terms of his body shape and his makeup. He seems physically strong and powerful, and he can run for days, and he's obviously got an eye for goal as well.
His goals were so well taken, man. So well taken. There were goals that most players wouldn't even be able to comprehend scoring, because there were balls put into the box that he just went for. No one else went for them, and it's a sign of a natural goal scorer of the highest quality, that they see a half chance and they fling themselves in the air to meet them. It's like Ronaldo. It's like what Ronaldo does. When a ball comes into the box, he makes absolutely sure that he is the one who gets on the end of it.
And it doesn't matter if it's a shot or a cross.
Exactly. The first one was a shot, and Cavani just flung himself at it and guided it into the back of the net. And he provided a really good assist for Bruno Fernandes as well, who continues to score or assist in every game. United are a really interesting case, because at times they look out of their depth, not at it, uninspired, not coached. But yesterday they played for Solskjaer and they played for themselves. And coming back from 2-0 down away to Southampton, who are in great form,
they are in great
form,
are
a good side, is a fantastic result. And credit to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and credit to Manchester United for that yesterday, because that was a great result.
Yeah, for sure. They showed fantastic fighting spirit to come back into the game. But I would also criticize the fact that they were 2 goals down. From the highlights that I saw, Harry Maguire was getting bullied by various Southampton players through the game. In the 4-minute highlight period, I saw him end up on the floor 2 or 3 times, get knocked off the ball. They obviously conceded a free kick on the edge of the box against Southampton, which you just don't do, with James Ward-Prowse standing over them, because he scores them. He puts them in the top corner.
De Gea should have done better, but that was a really well taken.
Mate, I'm telling you, you go on goals against James Ward-Prowse, and you try to keep them out, because it's a really, really difficult thing to do. He's got it up over the wall. He's clipped it nearly off the inside of that near post, and if De Gea starts any further to his right or commits any more to that, Ward-Prowse will just go across the other side of the goal. So it's a really difficult thing to do when you've
No, it
got
is.
someone
I
of that
just felt
quality
that
standing
because
over it.
he got a hand on it. I mean, as a keeper, I think if you got a hand on it, you're always disappointed that you didn't keep it out. But it was well
Yeah,
struck. But yeah, I mean, this is the other thing about United. It does seem that all of the positives come from their forwards. That in terms of midfield and defense, there's not very many positive things to say. And over the course of this is the thing. The forwards are going to bail them out or win them games probably more often than not. But there are going to be times, many more times over the course of the season, where their lack of quality in centre midfield and in defence is going to be exposed.
yeah. I suppose the biggest criticism of them as well has been how they've attacked teams that have sat deep and waited for them to break them down. And if they do have someone like Edison Cavani playing up top, that's more of a physical presence that they've lacked. Someone that can challenge for crosses, that can hold up the ball, that can bring other players into the game. I think it'll certainly stand to them.
But I think he gives them some flexibility, because when they're playing a game, I mean, United set up to play on the counter attack. They played with their fast forwards without a recognised out and out number 9. Greenwood and Rashford are not really number 9s. They're forwards, but they're not strikers, if you get me.
I do.
And against teams probably away from home, unless they're playing a team right down the bottom, and at home to clubs who like to knock the ball around, United are going to go with those players, and they're going to sit back and hit teams on the break. But Cavani gives them the other option to be able to be more direct, to be able to take the game to the opposition. And he's not that tall. I think he's only 5'11" or 6 foot, but he's got a great leap. He really, really has.
Yeah, he could certainly be a real weapon for them if he is available. There is an FA investigation launched today into comments that he made on his Instagram page yesterday in relation to Marcus Rashford. I'm sure we've all seen them. I think it's important to stress now that no one thinks that he was trying to offend anybody here. He wasn't being derogatory or he wasn't being malicious, but we've seen from previous examples. I think I want to talk about Bernardo Silva and Mendy. This whole concept that these things between friends and it's just a joke, and it doesn't really cut it as an excuse for making that kind of stuff public on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, we both have friends who are of a different color to ourselves. You just don't make that reference to other people's skin color. I just don't think it's like, why bring that up?
Yeah, and look, I know that South American culture is different, and I know that things are more acceptable, but I mean, it's the same word that got Luis Suarez banned for 8 games. Now, obviously, it's an entirely different context, and I think this is even what Suarez was trying to explain at the time, is that word isn't bad in itself. That word isn't bad, but everyone could see by the way he used the word that it obviously was. It was intended to be derogatory, and that's not the case this time. But he's put it on Instagram. He's not sent him a private message, or he's not just said, "Well done, Marcus Rashford." He's drawn attention to the color of his skin.
I think it shows a real lack of understanding and a real innocence, I suppose, of
ignorance. Maybe is a better word.
Ignorance. Yeah. I mean, it's not like he's a teenager as well. Cavani's 33. But it's like, this is the thing. There's a cultural difference between what's acceptable in Latin America and what's acceptable in Western Europe.
Yeah, but I mean,
2020,
like we mentioned, he's played the majority of his career in Europe. He's been in Italy and in France for a long time, and those are obviously two very culturally diverse. Well, France more so than Italy is incredibly culturally diverse. I don't think that would have been acceptable to say in France. I don't know why he's come to England and put it up either. And in reality, he's probably going to end up missing United's next game as a result of it.
Yeah. What did Bernardo Silva get? 1 game ban, and he had to take an education course. And
1 game and the education course. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's less severe. It's not as bad as what Bernardo Silva did, but if it's not far off that at the same time. Bernardo Silva had the cartoon, didn't he? Which was
Yeah,
really
the
distasteful.
caricature.
Yeah, that was really distasteful. Yeah, I don't think Cavani can have any complaints if he receives the same punishment as Bernardo Silva. And we need to. I mean, man, especially the year that's in it, with everything that's happened across the world in regards to civil rights movements for people of color. It smacks of ignorance, and you have to be better than that. You have to be more socially aware and understand that there are some things that you just don't say in 2020.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Look, we'll have a quick look at the rest of the table, the things we haven't talked about today. I know you wanted to talk about Everton Leeds, and man, Leeds play some bloody good football, don't they?
Oh, this is probably the most painful thing about being an Arsenal fan, is that seeing these players who the absolute lion's share have been championship players their entire careers, coming up out of the championship and continuing where they left off and playing without fear, no matter the opposition they set up, and they play progressive attacking football in every game. And yeah, it doesn't always work, but it's not always going to work because it's high risk, high reward football. And fair play to Marcelo Bielsa for sticking to his principles, and fair play to everyone at Leeds United for being so good and so positive, and for coming and for showing no fear whatsoever, and for the last two games keeping two back-to-back clean sheets, playing this same brand of football. Extremely proud. They can be extremely proud of themselves, and they're fast becoming everyone's second club, and for good reason as well.
What they've done is so impressive. From when Bielsa took over, I remember listening probably about at the start of last year. I think was it Jonathan Wilson did a great piece on Bielsa at Leeds, how he went in and straight away when he interviewed for the job, he didn't just interview for the job. He arrived with like a giant manifesto, essentially, of what he wanted, not just the team to be, but what the club to be. And he transformed everything. He came in and he redesigned the training ground. He was like, no, knock down these walls. We don't need these walls. Paint these walls. How the fuck can you train in a club with dirty walls? Paint that, clean that. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. This needs to be this way. I want screens here, outdoors. And they redid the entire training complex to his liking. They installed these player rooms where they can chill out. Then he looked at the players, and he started getting rid of players that weren't going to buy into it. Dropped. No, you're not good enough. Up, take the young players in. You want to play. You want to play. You want to play. You believe in this. You believe in this. You can play. You can play. And he created this culture of people that bought into everything that he was about. And it took him 2 seasons to even get out of the championship. I mean, you're saying that these players play the championship level. They are so well drilled and so well coached. And this is why they haven't gone and bought a lot of players coming up this year, because you can't just buy players and stick them into that team. It's like what we saw at Liverpool last year, where years of coaching kind of culminated in this brilliant product. And that's, I suppose, that's a real marker of why managers need to be given time to implement their philosophies, because they do play the best football in the Premier League right now, and it's the fruit of 3 or 4 years of labor that's gone into it.
Yeah, you're quite right. One thing I'll add to that is that I think that this might have been Bielsa's last chance. It hadn't really been working out for him for a few years. He'd been at various Europa League level European clubs. Think of Athletic Bilbao, Marseille, Nice, and it hadn't worked out. And he came to fallen giants Leeds United. Said that I remember when he was appointed, he said that Leeds don't deserve him, or he doesn't deserve. He said he doesn't deserve Leeds. This is too much. This is too good for me. And I think that he might have meant it. That he might have been down on his luck, but he went in and he revolutionized the club, as you said. And the level of detail that goes into that man's preparation. He watched every single championship game prior to the season. When he was appointed Leeds manager, he watched every single game from the season before.
Yeah.
And that was his preparation for the coming season.
But that was even before the interview. He watched all of Leeds games before the interview, and he came in. I watched all their games from last year, and this is what I think. And they were blown away by it.
Absolutely. Wouldn't you be if you were hiring someone if they took that much interest in your your
Yeah.
company? Companies always ask that you need to go in and know something about them. And I
Yeah.
mean,
So how much do you know about the company? Well, I've reviewed all of last year's performances and here's what I think.
exactly. It's unheard of, and he deserves. If he continues like this, they're going to finish comfortably mid-table, and they're going to have something to build on for next season. And I just hope for his sake and for their sake that he continues to inspire them, and that they don't become tired with his methods, because he is obviously a tough manager to work for, because he is so demanding. So I really hope for everyone at Leeds United that they can continue playing like this and go on to bigger and better things into next season.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I suppose the only other game that's happened this week, I know we didn't want to talk about it too much. West Brom obviously beat Sheffield United in what is really the first relegation 6-pointer of the season.
Mm. That was an important result for both teams. And you look at the table now, and Sheffield United are rock bottom coming into December with 1 point from 10 games.
It's the
How many
record for
goals
the
have they?
worst Premier League start of all time.
That's the worst Premier League start of all time. Of course, Derby beat Newcastle in their
Yeah.
first 8 games, I believe. I'm just going to get the league table up now.
Fulham. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, no, they're minus 12. Do you know how many goals?
How many have they
I want to see how
scored?
many goals they've scored. Yeah, I'll get the full table
The
now. They
F
have scored
column,
4.
yeah,
They've scored 4
in 10.
in 10. Oh, dear God.
And they missed some brilliant chances as well. They created something like 20 chances against West
Yeah.
Brom. Ryan Brewster didn't look great in front of goal. Leo Musa probably had the miss of the season from 3 yards out on the half volley. He managed to smash it over the bar in stoppage time. It's just not happening for them, is it?
No, it's not. They're going down. There's no two way. They're going to go. They're going to get relegated. They're in the worst form. I don't think that they're a great team with a great squad to begin with. I think that last season was a miracle to finish in the top half of the table and to be so competitive for so long. And this is going to be a long, dreary season for Sheffield United.
I think there were two things about last year. The first thing was that they had one of the best goalkeepers in the country in goals for them, Dean Henderson, and he really made his name there last year, and he's massively missed. And the other thing is just that they all went in last year. They all went in. Every shot they took seemed to end up in the back of the net, and that's just not the case this year.
Yeah.
They were lucky last year. I mean, they played some nice football, and they had overlapping fullbacks or overlapping centre backs, and they were different tactically. But I mean, they've lost a couple of players to injury. They haven't invested in their squad. They've lost their goalkeeper. I'm not massively convinced about Aaron Ramsdale. They pissed away a load of money on Ryan Brewster, who'd never played a Premier League game before, and yeah, I mean, it's not looking good for them in any way, shape, or form. And I don't, like I said, the only reason I could see a way back for them is because the teams around them are so poor. There are 4 of them down there in Fulham, Burnley, and West Brom as well. That they don't need to pull up trees. 2 wins and they're suddenly out of the drop zone as it stands.
This is it. They're all. The gap to 16th from bottom is 9 points, and the gap to 17th is 5 points. So yeah, you're completely right. It is just 2 wins. I just think that the way that they've started this season is up there with the very worst teams that we've seen compete in the Premier League.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd be very, very worried if I was a Sheffield United fan. 1 point from 10 games is bleak beyond belief. 4 goals, man, from 10 games.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really poor. But a win for West Brom, Joe. How big could that be for them? Could that be what galvanizes them and pushes them forwards?
I don't think so. I think that it's going to be a real battle between these 4 right until the final weeks of the season. I can't really see one of those teams pulling away, and I can't really see a Brighton or a Crystal Palace getting sucked into it.
If it was one team to pull away, you probably would imagine it'd be Burnley as well.
Like we've said before, they just have that extra experience, and the few players that they do have at the club are pretty good. You know, they have two strikers who've scored some goals over the past few seasons, and they have two centre backs who until quite recently were very highly rated and sought after. So yeah, they've probably more to be positive about than any of the others.
Two games on Monday Night Football, Joe. The Monday 5:30 kickoff, which I believe should be a criminal offence, especially on a weekend that you don't have an early Sunday kickoff. I didn't know what to do with myself yesterday, man, at about 12:30. I was pacing around the house and I just couldn't understand that there was no football on the TV. And then when I looked at the fixtures and saw that there was a Monday night 5:30 game and nothing early on the Sunday, I mean, who's watching that game at 5:30 on a Monday? You know, people aren't even home from work normally.
Yeah, exactly. It's madness.
Ridiculous.
Sacrificing an early kickoff on a Sunday for that.
I'm not having it. But anyway, look, Leicester host Fulham. Can you see anything other than a comprehensive Leicester win here?
No, I can't. I'd say 2-0, 3-1, something like that. It'll be relatively routine for Leicester, and that'll put them back level top of the league.
Yeah, it will.
They just keep on doing the business. Fair play.
Yeah, no, they do, absolutely. Fulham have looked better going forwards in their last couple of games, but they still look an absolute sham at the back. And I'd expect any Brendan Rodgers team with Jamie Vardy up front to pack a few goals. I think half of the world has captained Jamie Vardy in their fantasy team today for a good reason. The other game, West Ham Aston Villa, and this is actually a game I'm interested in.
I think it might be a draw. I think it might be a score draw, 1-1, 2-2, something like that.
Mate, I think anything could happen in this game.
It's unpredictable, which is kind of why I'm going for a draw. I think that West Ham will be quite happy to let Villa take the game to them and play on the counter attack, and I think that could suit them with the pace that they have in Bowen and Antonio. Is Antonio fit? Is he available? He missed the last game, didn't he? And Aller played.
He's missed the last few. He was expected to be back for the last game, and then he failed a late fitness test. So, I mean,
it'll be interesting to see if Aller gets dropped, because he scored a great goal in their last game to win the game for them. But he doesn't do what Antonio does. He doesn't have that pace. He's a great option off the bench, actually, because he's like Giroud and like Cavani. He has a physical presence.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I'm really interested in Aston Villa this year. I know everyone says that Leeds are quickly becoming everyone's second team, man. I've got a real eye on Aston Villa because they just do things a bit differently. I'm a little bit obsessed with Jack Grealish, to be honest. And I just love waiting to see what's going to happen, you know?
He has something about him, doesn't he, Grealish?
Yeah.
Like he owns the pitch when he's on it. It's all about him. No matter if he's playing for England or if he's playing for Aston Villa, he just attracts attention. Honestly, it's a little bit like David Beckham. I know they're very different types of players. Grealish was much more about flair and dribbling and things like that, whereas Beckham was all about his delivery and his passing range. But they both stand out on a football pitch. They both, they exude confidence and class in a way. Classic. I know Grealish is half Irish or whatever it is, but a classic English footballer in the best sense of the world. Do you see that? Do you see a comparison between Grealish and Beckham in the way that they strut about? Yeah,
man, they're superstars, you know?
They are superstars, yeah. And they know it as well. That's the other thing.
Oh, man, I just like I said at the start of the show, if Aston Villa win both of their games in hand, they're suddenly top of the league. And I mean, obviously as a Liverpool fan, I don't want anybody else anywhere near the top of the league. I want Liverpool to be 10 points clear already, like they were last year. I just don't even want to be looking over our shoulder. But I think this is fantastic that already, I know, like I said, we're only 10 games in, but all of a sudden you could have Spurs, Liverpool, Chelsea, Aston Villa and Manchester United all within 1 point of each other if they win their game, or sorry, 2 points of each other if they win their games in hand at the top of the league. And that's fun, that's good for football.
It is, especially coming into the unpredictable Christmas period. Anything could happen, man. I'd love an Aston Villa to mount a title challenge. I'd absolutely love it.
Leicester as well. Sorry, I didn't even. There could be 6 teams within 2 points of each other.
Yeah, imagine that. I mean, I think it's great, especially when for the last 10 years we've had this defined big six. And
Yeah.
I'm a bit salty about it because the team that have dropped off the most is my club. But at the same time, it's really good for English football that teams like Leicester and teams like Aston Villa are playing so well. I mean, these teams play good football. They're not crashing the top six, parking the bus, and eking out 1-0 wins here and there and shutting up shop. They're playing proper, good, expansive football. A continental approach from two British managers.
Do you think maybe it shows a slight drop off in the top European teams? I know we spoke about obviously the fixture pile up and the European games and the lack of recovery time. Do you think maybe it's a case that the elite performers aren't quite at 100%, and that's maybe giving the chance for some of these other mid-table clubs to kind of rub shoulders for a while, or do you think that it's genuinely an improvement across the league?
No, it's an improvement across the league. It's a sign that clubs like
Because look
Leicester City can attract great players.
across.
They brought in
Go on, sorry.
like Yuri Tielemans, Shadlar Soyuncu, who are both very highly rated European footballers, and they chose to go to Leicester. The money is in the Premier League.
Yeah, it is.
That's where players want to go. That's where the spotlight is, and that's where the big pay packages is in Europe at the moment. So if a mid-table club comes in for you and you're, I don't know, playing in the Belgian league or the Dutch league or even Serie A or something, and you get an offer to go and play for a Premier League club and double your wages, you're going to take it.
Yeah. Now, look, going across Europe a little bit, and it's interesting you mentioned Europe there. Like, I've got the Spanish league open here, and sitting top, I look at they played a couple more games. Real Sociedad in first, Atletico Madrid, Villarreal, Real Madrid, Sevilla, Cadiz, and then Barcelona in seventh, who do have a couple of games in hand. But it's much more open in that league than we've seen it in probably about a decade or so. I think. Let's have a look at the Bundesliga. Bayern are top, which isn't too much of a surprise, and Serie A is closer. Again, AC Milan, that nobody expected, are flying high up at the top. Inter Milan, Sassuolo, and then Juventus in fourth place. Napoli in fifth.
Yeah, I'm not going to profess to be a great expert on European football. I just don't have the time to be watching all of that anymore. But in Spain, I think it's been a long time coming for Real Madrid and Barcelona. Because if you look at their squads and their managerial appointments over the past 5 years or so, the drop off in quality is quite alarming.
It is, but I'm trying to ask: is there a bigger issue? Not issue in football here, but are the amount of games being played reducing the quality at the top?
No, I don't think so, because I think we've seen enough. For Bayern Munich, are you going to tell me that Bayern Munich team are suffering from playing congested fixtures? They're one of the best teams we've ever seen. That was a remarkable run that Hansi Flick took them on last season to win the Bundesliga and the Champions League. Liverpool, I mean, maybe we can leave the Premier League aside. I'm trying to think in Italy. For Juventus, they've been so dominant. And they've gone down a path of a new manager, who's had no previous managerial experience. So this was always going to be difficult for them. And AC Milan have been in the wilderness for a long time, but they've had a project that they've been working on. And sometimes it takes time for these projects to click into gear. Inter Milan as well, the same thing. They'll be... If Juventus don't win the league, Inter Milan will be kicking themselves if they don't, because they've got a proven winner in Antonio Conte, and they've got an experienced squad packed full of players who have been there and done it time and again. So, if they lose the league to AC Milan, as that's on Inter Milan, because they've the better squad. I know Ibrahimovic is doing his thing, but look at Inter Milan's squad, the likes of Lautaro Martinez, Romelu Lukaku, Alexis Sanchez. Do they have Arturo Vidal as well? Or did he? Yeah. Just packed full of players who have been there and done it. They've been brought in for one reason, and that's to win win Serie A as soon as possible.
Yeah, and look, you're probably right that I think it might be a combination of things. I am of the opinion that the amount of games being played is impacting the quality a bit. I think that teams not playing European football will benefit this year from the amount of football that the European clubs are being asked to play. But like you said, these are the richer clubs that have the more resources and maybe should have deeper squads that are able to cope with it. It's not a surprise to anybody that the season is unfolding the way it is. You know, these games haven't come out of nowhere.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, Joe, it's been real.
It has. Until next time.
Till next time. All right.